What he could have done, just make Han shoot first. They don't have to change it 5 times.
Yeah.
Just fucking change it to how it should have been. And how it was for 25 years, George.
I was wrong. I think this is the opening. Your little George Lucas rant.
I just love how he's so butthurt. Like, they went and made their own thing with that thing they spent $4 billion on. How dare them? I'm gonna have a friggin' pop blood vessel over.
I'm laughing so hard.
Star Wars Episode 8, The Revenge of the White Slave Drivers. Hey guys, welcome to There Will Be Expletives. I'm Geoff.
I'm Ron.
And look, we're back with Ron. More lists that nobody fucking asked for.
Yes.
Fuck yeah. This time we're going to be doing... earlier in the year was kind of like a beta for this. It was our top 5 horror movies, which I actually really enjoyed. That's been one of my favorite podcasts we've done, because I like the
You've
back
been
and...
dreaming of being able to list something in a forum where no one is listening since you were a child, basically, right?
Well, yeah, like the last... we were talking about that earlier today. The last few years... when I started getting older and getting more into just kind of movies in general, like I always kind of by the end of the year formulated in my brain like a top 5. I don't know why. This is something I always did. Maybe because I started getting into...
Surprised you didn't end up blogging or something if you did that.
Yeah.
Especially being a writer. Like, you're my only writer friend.
I don't appreciate your logic, Ron. No, but I think this is going to be really cool because, you know, even though no one listens to our podcast, I think it's entertaining, the back and forth on how you and I see eye to eye on 90% of shit, but it's so much more fun to argue about the 10% that we don't agree on.
And it's like, a lot of the things that we agree are awesome. Usually, you thought one point was awesome. Like, no, that was garbage. What was awesome was blah, blah, blah. And like, even though we thought something was awesome, we had 2 entirely different takes on why it was awesome or why something sucked.
Yeah, or with Jessica Jones, we both really liked it, but we had different criticisms of it, like very specific different criticisms. Which is, I think it's always fun to do the back and forth as far as specifically with TV shows and movies. Also, the other interesting one to do if we were actually competent enough to play video games.
Yeah.
I think doing a top 5 video game list would be interesting too, because video games are even...
And it's a very useful number because that's about all we play in a year. So.
No, let's be honest right now. Our top game of 2015 is Arkham Knight.
And Dark Souls.
No. God, what did we actually play? We played Arkham Knight. We played Battlefront. That was and Transformers.
And
but we didn't beat them.
No.
So the only thing we can actually competently talk about is Arkham Knight and a little bit of Battlefront.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that I like the concept of ranking video games because video games are even more subjective than movies to me. Because like with video games, you know, this thing could have an awesome storyline but have garbage gameplay, and how do you judge
you know what's
it?
interesting in like movies and TV shows is, you know, I see the world differently than you do because we are looking at them through a different lens. But a video game you're actually experiencing. So you have a night and day difference on the way you see movies and video games because you're actually living it. You know, even if it's not a role-playing game, you're still taking on a role in the game. You're a character in the game. Where it's more interactive than a movie or TV show is.
What's funny is we bring up video games. I would actually be able to probably do a top 5 in video games if I didn't spend so much goddamn time trying to keep up on the 35 TV shows that I am watching.
Your list is ridiculous of what you watch, dude.
It's insane. Like, I don't even know how I find time to sleep with all of the...
I mean, the fact you even had to write them all down so you don't miss anything, it says enough about how many TV shows that you watch.
Yeah, but well, we've beaten around the bush quite enough so far, so I want to go ahead and jump onto the list. We're going to be starting off with TV. And I am going to be starting with and obviously we're going worst to first. I like
that. It kind of rhymes.
And by saying worst, not that means that it's terrible. It's just it's number 5 of the top 5. So
yeah,
number 5 for me in TV was Better Call Saul.
Okay, I respect that.
The Better Call Saul obviously is the prequel to Breaking Bad, and while it wasn't Breaking Bad, I thought it was fantastic in its own right. It was kind of like It was weird. Like, it felt like it was in the universe of Breaking Bad, but it was a completely different experience at the same time.
It was a tie-in, but it stood apart on its own. It had its own legs. It didn't have to piggyback on the back of Breaking Bad.
I am also usually very, very particular.
I also, not to interrupt, I also felt like you could appreciate that show even without having seen Breaking Bad, even though you would definitely appreciate it more if you had.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's a very good point.
That's difficult to do. I
am also typically very, very, very harsh on prequels because
of certain experiences.
Not even
3 experiences.
Well, not even specifically like you're obviously referencing Star Wars, but just as a general concept with prequels, they can only do so much.
Right.
Because one of the things I love in fiction is stakes and the idea that anything can happen. And
if they show you a character that you know from the others.
Yeah. It's like in the Hobbit movies. Fucking Bilbo's not going to die. Gandalf's not going to die.
Right.
And they have Legolas later. Legolas isn't going to die. So, when they're in peril, you don't get into it as much as if you're watching, a Joss Whedon film and, holy shit, people can die. You know what I mean? So, I just thought Better Call Saul did a genius job of, like you were saying, it's its own thing. It totally works with the universe. And above all else, it gave us more of Jonathan Banks' Mike.
Yes.
Who was my favorite character from Breaking Bad. And what might be the single best episode of any television show I saw all year was the Mike episode of Better Call Saul. I remember the one I'm talking about. It is heartwarming. It is badass. It is everything you can think of possibly being good is in that one episode.
Yeah, no, dude, I would watch a whole show of Mike. That just gives me his background and how he ended up at the fucking taking the tickets in the parking lot.
Yeah, and I mean it's even if
because they even kind of set that up with his history that they went into, especially in that episode.
And it's funny. It's an incredibly funny show.
Yeah.
Which was kind of a strange take on it. Saul was always funny in Breaking Bad. He was kind of the comic relief.
He was in small doses and was the comic relief, like you were going to say. Yeah.
But in Better Call Saul, a good portion of it, you remember the toilet. A part of it is hilarious. Yeah.
Yeah. What I appreciated about it also was he was a lot more over the top in Breaking Bad because that was part of his charm. In Breaking Bad, everyone is so serious.
Yeah.
And you had him, he was not only just funny, and I'm actually blanking on, what's the actor's name that plays him?
Saul?
Yeah.
Oh, God, we're terrible.
I know.
We're terrible.
I feel so bad. It's right on the, if we hadn't been talking about this.
Yeah, I will be able to tell you in 2 seconds.
No,
and I'm gonna
Bob Odenkirk.
I was as soon as my Google started loading, it started popping back into my brain.
Yeah. So okay. So we're
back
totally
on track.
qualified.
Back on track. Back on track. Nothing's fucked.
Part of what was so charming was Bob Odenkirk himself's a very funny guy, right? And he's a brilliant actor and writer, actually.
Yes.
But the way he did Saul was almost like the way you see every televangelist on TV. I don't know, there's just something about it that was really funny, and it was really over the top, and it really set apart. But in Better Call Saul, some of that was there, but it wasn't there all the time. They didn't overdo it.
Yeah.
It's pretty serious and dramatic in a lot of the time, and then every once in a while he just kind of flies off the handle and goes over the top again. And it just, I don't know, everything about that show was actually brilliant.
We're getting close to season 2 as well, so I just
February,
can't wait.
I believe, right?
Yeah, getting real close. I cannot wait. And I think that's about it for Better Call Saul. That was my number 5. So now we're moving over to Ron's number 5.
You're probably not going to agree with my number 5.
I'm not going to agree with anything you say.
Probably not. It's probably not going to surprise you either.
I have a feeling of what you're about to say. Go ahead and say it.
Into the Badlands.
I had a fucking feeling. Because I knew what you would do is you had to find a way to squeeze it in. And the easiest way for you to justify including Into the Badlands was at 5. I had a freaking feeling. But I'm talking shit. I liked Into the Badlands a lot, too.
Well, here's the thing. I'm a huge fan of over-the-top action.
No.
And, just crazy, Shaolin monks type thing, and Bulletproof Monk, and I guess anything with a monk in it. And, I can't even think of the name of the Jackie Chan Jet Li one. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, God, you're asking the wrong person. I haven't seen as many of those movies as I
We
should
need to
have.
sit down and watch it. I think you would actually like that. It basically feels like Inuyasha in real life. But here's the thing. When I saw that show advertised, I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to watch that. It's going to be terrible story, and it's going to get old really fast.
Kung fu porn.
Yeah. And it's going to get old really fast. But, yeah, I was totally wrong on both fronts. Actually, I kind of like the story they've got. It's not the greatest narrative I've ever seen.
It totally works for the show.
It works.
And it's actually kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Which that was all they had to do.
Exactly.
It's because they had to make it kind of interesting. It didn't have to be Game of Thrones, and it shouldn't have been.
They literally knew that you were turning it on for the action, but the narrative was a good enough excuse for it to be a TV show at the same time. It captures you a little bit.
They were also incredibly smart, and I hope they don't expand the order in episode totals, because 6 episodes worked beautifully, because they didn't have to grind it to a fucking halt.
Yeah.
In order to get from action scene to action scene, because their story was so spread thin.
Yeah.
Having 6 episodes, what I really liked about it is, what do I always say, one of the things I love in fiction, period, is when you do not fuck around to tell your story.
Yes.
And there is no fucking around in that show.
The other thing that I totally thought going in was that it was going to get old really quick. Like, that much action all the time. How many different ways can you kill someone with a fucking sword and stuff? And every fight has been completely different.
Yeah, each of them fits in the same kind of batshit crazy, but it's its own flavor of batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, we go from crazy ass fight that is in the second to last season that was one-on-one.
Second to last episode.
Second to last episode, sorry. My next statement was getting jumbled in there. All the way, we get to that from what your favorite one was one guy versus a room full of other guys.
Oh,
Bruce Lee
so
style.
amazing.
Like, it's what worries me about it though is how much more can they show us that's different in season 2 from what that's not what we haven't seen. I don't know about the longevity of the show.
Did you finish? You finished season 1?
I have one episode.
You have one episode left. Okay, I will not obviously spoil anything for you, but I thought they actually did a very, very good job of establishing season 2, just as far as what's going to be going down with the, not just like the action setup, like you have a very valid point about how much can they eventually do with the action, but as far as the characters are concerned, and obviously we're not talking Game of Thrones level characters, but some of them are actually decently interesting.
Yeah, the main guy I really think
Sonny, I like that too. They did a good job of establishing more to do with them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you'll feel a little bit better about it after you finish the finale on it.
But no, it made my top 5 not because of what it. Well, okay, I guess that's not entirely true. It made my top 5 because of what it is and not how it advertised itself, if that makes any sense. Because all the advertisements for it was action, action, action.
Which they were smart to do.
Yes. And then I just expected everything else about it to blow. I was only there for the fights.
I was expecting, like you were saying, what I thought would be happening was I would be watching the show and I'd be dicking around on my phone in between fight scenes. Where you're just like, you're waiting to hear for someone to like die. And you're like, oh, I need to watch it now.
Yeah.
But it was totally like, when I was watching it, obviously I was anticipating and excited for the next fight scene, but I wasn't sitting there yelling at my TV like, oh, for the love of God, get to the next fight scene. Like, they did a really good job. I agree. It wasn't good enough to be in my top 5, but it's probably fringing on my top 10.
I will also give you that my expectations of what I thought it was going to be is probably one thing that made me so impressed with it. But, I mean, it impressed me enough with what they managed to do with what they were going for. Because you can tell when you watch that show that their only goal is the action still. But they impressed me with everything else they did. And the acting and stuff in it's much better than I thought it would be. And everything. So
we should also take a second to what I think people... When people go onto the comment section of a top 5 or top 10 list on, let's say, IMDb or something like that, or Nerdist, and they go and be bitchy about it, well, when you say what your top 5 TV shows are, they are your top 5 favorites to you.
Yes.
Top 5 to Ron, and like... What if you were gonna be like, if I said, name me the top 5 best TV shows. That would be a different list than your top 5 favorite TV shows, because it's totally subjective to you.
Right.
And there's a difference between what you view as really, really, really entertaining to you and what is just outright good. There's a difference to it.
There's also a difference in that when we're ranking 1 through 5, like you said, that's our 5 favorite. That doesn't mean 5 sucked.
No.
And this list, you and I had said several times, are not fucking easy to rank.
No, these were...
Like you said, it's like picking your favorite children, is what you said to me in a text message.
I painfully went back and forth on stuff, both in the TV section...
I flipped movies around a couple times.
My movies were more of a struggle for me.
It was a good year for movies in a lot of ways. Yeah, it also wasn't in a lot of ways.
My thing with TV is, and I won't tell them until we do the honorable mentions, but what was in competition for 5 was my biggest struggle in TV, which we'll talk about later.
With that,
back to my number 4. I think this one might surprise you a little bit. Game of Thrones.
Really?
Only comes in at 4.
Okay.
If we are talking best TV shows of the last 5 years, I think it's number 1.
Okay.
If we're talking best TV shows or my top TV shows of 2014, it's number 1. But this season, it was always good, but they didn't have as many made my jaw drop moments until the last couple of episodes.
Yeah.
When it kicked in, it got really fucking good. The best show on TV good.
It stayed at cruising speed for a while.
And like you just said, doesn't mean it sucks.
Yeah.
I adore Game of Thrones.
And Game of Thrones doesn't have bad episodes.
No. It's just...
But they have some really fucking good episodes.
I thought, especially... and it's not their fault. What they did is they combined the 2 books in chronological order to make it progress like a TV show instead of a book.
Yeah.
So they had to do it. They actually did an incredible job. It's fucking Game of Thrones. I can talk about it. The hard home stuff wasn't in the book.
Yeah.
That was made up for the TV show, and it was the coolest fucking thing of the whole season.
Yeah, dude.
So, yeah.
That episode blew my mind left, right, and sideways.
But yeah, I don't really think there's much to say about Game of Thrones. I basically said my thoughts on it in the last 5 years and versus now. So that's basically all I have to say about it. I still love it. It's just typically it would be higher, but like you said, it was on cruise control until episode 8. So I felt I should deduct it a little bit.
So, okay. Still a respectable choice. My number 4...
Duck Dynasty.
I'm pretty sure that still Phil's number 1. Now my number 4 would be The Flash.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? I am stunned by this. I thought for sure that would be top 2 or 3.
Yeah. No, it's my number 4. And... Let me tell you...
Such testicles right now. I'm impressed by this. I was not expecting those.
That my top 4 were all just hairlines away from being a tie on all fronts for me.
Okay.
So, it was hard. It's just the more I thought about stuff, I kind of felt about The Flash the way you kind of felt about Game of Thrones necessarily. It didn't have any bad episodes.
Okay.
And
okay, first of all, since this isn't like the other shows we've talked about, how are we judging the second half of last season that happened in 2015 versus the current season? Are you strictly talking current season?
I'm strictly. When we originally decided we were doing this, we first said if it aired in 2015 at all. And then later, you and I decided strictly 2015.
Strictly the current season.
Yes.
So we're just talking season 2.
We're just talking season 2.
Okay.
This season, I felt like, it was pretty good pace. They didn't have any boring episodes. They don't have any bad episodes. And I like everything they did. But I think the problem is the 20-something episode run.
You wish it was 13?
I wish it was 13 episodes is probably a good number.
They did a better job in the first half of the first season of making it not feel like it was a 22-episode run. I will totally agree with you on that one.
They did do a good job of making it stand apart from season 1, even though it's the same formula, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
But, dude, again, like Game of Thrones, when they kicked it up a notch... Holy shit! Like that Flash versus Zoom fight.
Oh man, I think it's very, very fascinating how you and I just with different shows, had the exact same opinion, basically. Yeah.
I don't think I was going to phrase it as well as you did, but after hearing your Game of Thrones talk, like, yeah, that's how I felt about The Flash. That's why mine's number 4. So, yeah, but no, I was still happy with it. Still, I was kind of worried about the longevity of that show a tiny bit at the end of season 1, just because of the 20 episode runs. But yeah, no, they did a good enough job. I'm not worried about that anymore. I don't think. I think I would watch it even if nothing was happening, just because it's The Flash. I fucking love that show.
At the very minimum, it's a charming as fuck show.
Yeah,
you love everyone.
Yeah,
which is like the polar opposite of Arrow. Like, it could not be more the polar opposite of Arrow, because
Arrow is nowhere near my list.
At this point in Arrow, I don't really know if I like anybody.
Yeah,
like even
I'm still in love with Felicity, but I know that she's off of your radar now.
Like I like.
Let's be honest though, if she came up to you in a bar.
Oh no, it has nothing to do. I'm just talking about her character. Like strictly. I mean, obviously.
Yeah,
she's stunning. I think the only person I like on that show anymore is I still like Malcolm Al Ghul.
Yeah,
he's a cool character, and I like Stephen Amell as Oliver Queen. More so, I think, because like we were talking earlier today about how Ewan McGregor has to do all he possibly can as an actor to salvage some of his stuff in the prequels.
Yeah,
I think Stephen Amell, with some of the stuff they have him do in that show, he has to like work his ass off to make it salvageable, and I appreciate him doing that.
I wonder how many times in the readings that he would just be like, guys, come on, can I just say or do this instead? And they'd be like, no.
Yeah, but we were talking about Arrow too much.
I know. We talked about it more than it deserves.
Yeah,
I don't think that's on. It's not on my list. Not on your list, is it? I'm sure.
Spoilers for number 1. That's interesting, though. I would imagine Flash would be higher.
Like I said, mine were all very, very slim margins.
Was there anything else you wanted to say on Flash, or are you moving back over to my 3?
No, we're on to your number 3. I didn't have a whole lot to say about Flash. I have no criticisms of it. I know that. That's rare for me.
My number 3 is The Flash.
I saw that coming.
Yeah.
I figured it'd be in your top 3. I just didn't know why.
I will go back to what you were talking about, how, like, if we were counting with it part of the ending of last season,
yeah,
I think if I could combine the second half of season 1 with the first half of season 2, it might be number 1.
Yeah,
like, very, very close number 1. Because
I guess I did have one criticism, but go ahead.
Some of the shit towards the end of Flash season 1 was awesome. Like the last 4 or 5 episodes, built up to something, which is like one of my other biggest criticisms about. You remember back when you watched Arrow? It was like there wasn't really a whole lot of build up, and they were like in the last episode, they're like, "Oh my god, shit's going down." Over.
Right.
Flash actually had like a ramp up to the climax.
Yeah, Arrow just kind of hit and it was done.
Yeah, for sure. So Flash was my number 3. If we were combining the first half of season 1, which that just makes for an awkward critique of it too.
Yeah, because
you're kind of fighting back and forth. But yeah, basically, I echo the same thoughts you have on it. At the end of the day, like I adore all of the characters, and it's probably the best thing I can say about. And season 2 isn't as good as 1, but that is a hard show to pull off too.
Yeah, it is,
because
especially with their they have kind of like a Scooby-Doo formula going with Monster of the Day.
And they even make their names work because of the Cisco idea. Like that, I mean, Weather Wizard, they make work in that show. Like
they made him a terrifying villain too.
What's the Rainbow Glider? I think is the name.
Rainbow Raider.
Rainbow Raider. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the one that had Caitlyn name, and he's like, "You're never naming anyone again."
Yeah, and like we're saying, like it's my 3 and it's your 4. It's still fucking good. It's just it hasn't been as good as season 1.
I think honestly, what I was probably thinking, I forgot. I do have one criticism of it. And
how dare you, sir?
Yeah.
Is that we're talking just season 2?
We're talking just season 2. I guess spoilers for Flash, but the premiere. Remember, I was not too keen on the premiere.
You and Philip got downright pissy about the premiere of the Flash.
I did not like the flash forward, excuse the pun, of shit was going down at the end of 1, and then it's however many months later, and we just get little tiny flashbacks here and there. I'm like, really?
I see what you did there.
Because that one I didn't even know I did. But yeah, I'm like,
That's
come
a fair,
on, guys.
It's a fair criticism.
Because they built me up, and it was the cliffhanger, and then it starts up again, and it's just over.
It's a fair criticism. I think what changed my opinion on it and why I went easier on it than you did is because I am fully aware it's a CW show, and they do that for all of their shows, and they have done it forever. Look at Arrow. Can you even tell me what has happened on any of the Arrow premieres?
Not really.
No. And I love Supernatural. That's one of the biggest problems with Supernatural is like they build up to this epic shit, but they literally, and it's not their fault as a writing team, they don't have the money.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to go back and, like, let's talk season 2 of The Flash. You already talked about Zoom. Are you going to save money for the Zoom fight, or are you going to continue what happened in season 1? You're going to save money for the Zoom fight.
Which is exactly what they did.
Yes.
Because that
it's
finale
fucking amazing.
was yeah.
So, you have a totally valid criticism of it. I was kind of expecting it, so that lowered my expectation a little bit. So that's a totally fair criticism. It was just not one that I judged it as harshly for. So yeah. It doesn't mean it's bad.
I just feel like I was teased, and then they walked away, and I'm like, but what about the blue balls? So yeah,
but at least like, I mean, starting immediately the next episode though, it started ramping back up again, and it got good again.
And I really liked the Hot Girl stuff, and the crossover this year was really good.
Yeah.
Even though Arrow's
since we're already spoiling shit for the Flash. I mean, everyone's fucking watching the Flash. No one listens to this podcast. The stuff with the Wells, I thought, has been genius.
Oh God, I love it.
Yeah,
and I love that they're calling him Harry.
Yeah,
he's not Wells.
Oh, I fucking love the Flash. But yeah, we're back to your number 3.
My number 3. I'm actually rearranging my list on the fly while I keep staring at my phones. I'm still not decided.
Oh my God, this is going to go horribly.
I've been staring at this all day. I think I'm going to put my number 3 Game of Thrones.
So did I talk you down in the order by what I was saying?
No, I was already hesitant on it because today, remember when I texted you when I was at work and said that I'm still staring at my list, rearranging it? Game of Thrones has been cycling between like 1, 3, and 5 for me. And I realize it's just certain episodes like Hard Home and stuff that bumps it right up to number 1.
Hard Home by itself makes it a top 5 show.
Yes, it does.
Which is fucking like, which in the landscape of how fucking good TV is right now.
Yeah.
Like, one thing making it a top 5 show shows you how fucking epic that was. Like, and I don't use the word epic. It was epic.
I use it all the time, so it's not that epic for me to use epic. But yeah, no. I'm gonna say Game of Thrones was my number 3. I like what they did with the White Walker stuff, and I basically had a lot of the same opinions you had. But God, dude, when I think back to the orgasm I had during Hard Home,
I want to watch it again right now.
I know.
I want to watch it again.
You and I immediately when the episode was over was like ramble tracks, and we went back and did
like
it.
As we were, it was like all caps text the entire time. Like, oh my God, what's going on, Ron? Everyone's gonna die. I know that happens anyway, but everyone's really gonna die.
Yeah, dude,
it was genius. That was just like. In everything that happened before, it wasn't bad, but it's just like if I told you right now, tell me
what they did. What they did was Hard Home was an amazing episode. The whole episode, and what they did instead was they had really good narratives, and every once in a while had something fucking amazing, and then back to the really good narrative, which was a little bit different. Now I don't blame them necessarily for anything wrong. And again, they don't have bad episodes, and I fucking love Game of Thrones. I mean, I have a season of it sitting on my desk right here as we're talking, for God's sake. But one thing it kind of had working against it as well is isn't this season and the next season the same book? Or something like that?
What happened with Game of Thrones in this current season and at least one more season is books, I think it was books 4 and 5 happen out of chronological order. Basically, books 4 and 5 happen at the same time. So what they had to do is, and I do, fuck that job.
Right.
Of having to do that.
That's what I was about to say.
But what they did was they rearranged it and combined books 4 and 5 into one chronological narrative.
And what you're basically getting out of that is one season that's the first half of 2 books.
Which is a complete and utter setup, which is why they had to make the Hard Home thing.
And the next season should be the second half of both books.
All of the shit going down. Like what's been the
So if you take something like, say, The Hunger Games that split a book into 2 movies, you see what you get. And they managed to take 2 books, the first half of them, combine it into a single season, and it was still as good as it was.
Masterful fucking job. Masterful job.
I am definitely not knocking them in any way, shape, or form, because no one wanted that job, I'm sure. But, I think that was one thing that kind of had working against it, because if you compare it to the other seasons that they have had, it probably wasn't their strongest season, but it was still strong as a show.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so that's going to be my number 3. I'm curious about your number 2.
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who. With
enough said. Mine now.
with Doctor Who this season, and I'm sure at some point, if anyone is actually listening to us, I'm
sure you could tell by the smile on my face when I said that. I knew what your number 2 probably was. We've gotten this far and you hadn't said it yet.
And I think if anyone is actually listening to us now, and they have listened to us before, and we've talked about how you like season 8 a lot more than I did. I basically disagreed with the entire idea behind the driving force of season 8, and I adore almost everything that happened in season 9.
Season 9 is pretty fucking awesome.
I think it is.
British series 9.
It is just like this fucking close to being my favorite season they've done of Doctor Who.
Really?
And Peter Capaldi is he's not near. I ranked them basically Tennant. And a little bit under him, Matt Smith, and then under him, Eccleston. Capaldi's about with Eccleston for me.
Really?
He's getting up there just because of this last season. Because what I think they did, and it started in the very first premiere, the goal of season 9 was to make you like Peter Capaldi's Doctor, and by the end of it, I loved his Doctor. I thought by the end of it, they did
I liked him from that premiere, dude.
With the guitar and the tank.
Dude, those images ruled the internet for weeks.
I think I still have one of them saved on my phone. It's like it was the one where he's in kind of like smoke, and he's holding the guitar, and it's like he's back.
It's the silhouette.
Yeah,
right.
So good.
Yeah. What was funny was what I liked about season 8 was what you hated, and what you liked about season 8 is what I hated. And season 9, I don't think either one of us really had. You even liked Clara in season 9.
Like they what I
you
never
wanted to murder her in season 8.
Well, and first of all, I like Jenna Coleman. I think she's a really, really good actress. My whole problem with season 8 was when you look back on it, Danny Pink probably has more character development than the Doctor, in my opinion. And it was kind of. Like he really set up Capaldi to be hated by the fan base because he never really did anything with him, and what he did, he kind of made him an asshole. Like that's been your biggest complaint about it. It's like he was always.
I called him the dictor the whole time because he was just a dick.
And what was cool about season 9 was stuff like the cards with Clara's cards. They made him a lovable asshole,
which is what they tried painfully to get out of him in season 8, and. I feel like, I told you before, I had nothing wrong with Capaldi as an actor.
No, he's always good.
But my problem was with the Doctor and the way they wrote him. It just they gave Capaldi nothing to work with.
Yeah, and that's always in my.
He was drastically different writer to writer because he even had like clairvoyant powers in the one where the moon was an egg and it hatched. Like, he didn't even need the TARDIS to look into the future. He just closed his eyes and told them what all was going to be happening in the future. And it just got weird.
Yeah, it felt like, okay, this is what it feels like happened. All the writers hired horrible ghost writers for season 8, and they just got together in a room. And by season 9, it all felt like it was a singular vision by 8 or 9 different people. Because Capaldi's Doctor always felt the same from episode to episode. Like, he felt, he was a lovable asshole. Like, in that scene with the cards. Yeah. Like, it
feels like season 8, all the writers never talked to each other and wrote all the episodes at the same time within the span of, 2 weeks and just turned them in, homework.
And emailed them in without ever seeing face-to-face. And season 9 all felt organic. And let's just talk about, first of all, real quick, before we move on to one of the other, in our top 5, making them all two-parters was genius.
Yes.
Because that's one of the problems with season 8, is because they had all those episodes shipped out to different writers, and literally episode to episode, they were trying to figure out who the Doctor is going to be, how Capaldi is going to play him, and can you imagine being Capaldi? He's trying to make up his own interpretation of what he wants his own doctor to be while he's fighting.
Because keep in mind, he's also
scripts.
living the dream. He was in love with Doctor Who in the original series, right?
Yeah.
This is his like childhood dream come true.
And starting off, and Moffat's premiere, the 2-part premiere with the Davro stuff.
Oh, God.
Was fucking genius.
Let's face it, we've all had this exact same nightmare.
Yeah. What's that? One of my favorite quotes. I'm gonna butcher it, but it was where he's talking to him in like the hand creepy ass minefield. Remember that shit?
Yes.
And he's like, "Your odds of survival are 10,000 to 1. I'm gonna need you to focus on the 1."
Yeah.
Oh, I fucking love shit like that.
All you need is the 1. All you need to do is focus on the 1.
No one in Hollywood, period, will ever be able to, within the span of 10 minutes, make me cry, make me horrified, and make me shit my pants like Stephen Moffat can.
Yeah.
But yeah, making them all 2-parters was genius. Just making you like Capaldi's Doctor was genius, and I actually thought they had kind of which they typically don't do. They actually kind of had like a 3 or 4 episode ramp up to their finale. Usually they're kind of like the shit's happening, it's over.
Yeah.
They actually kind of had a continuing narrative building to an end.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just love the whole thing. So going back to your number 2. Doctor Who?
Doctor fucking Who, good sir.
Like, repeat the last 5 minutes of podcast and continue.
Yeah, no. The only thing I regretted about this season is usually we get one episode that stars the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Because the TARDIS is one of my favorite characters. But other than that, no criticisms. I mean, I was a little bit disappointed in the Arya stuff, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah, it wasn't. I thought the first half of it was funny, but was kind of pointless. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it kind of ended up being like the Impossible Girl a little bit all over again. So by the time you get to the end, it's like, oh, there wasn't a whole lot of payoff to that.
That one, they had 2 kind of hiccups, which weren't bad. It was that one and the eye. The eye dust
yes.
one. That one
was strange.
It was very, very...
Not to make any doctor puns.
It was very out of place.
Yeah.
Because like they had that kind of brilliant 2-parter thing going where it
was like a season 1 episode, kind of.
Yeah.
Before it hit its stride, kind of. It wasn't a bad episode.
It was just... What made it seem bad was how good everything else was.
Yes.
Yeah. Like,
it was basically if it had happened in a prior season... Especially a David Tennant season.
Yeah, back when you were expecting Monster of the Week randomness and not like those like really...
And I laughed, and I sent you the text message when it happened. I think finding out it's like the sleep in your eye that you wipe out every morning was like the midichlorians force thing for me.
Oh my God.
In episode 1, when you find out a Jedi's biggest weakness is penicillin. Like, I just was like, really? That's what's going to give me the monster as that fucking Clayface is the sleep in your eye.
Now, what salvaged that specific episode was I actually thought it had a really cool ending.
Yes, it did. That's what I was going next.
Yeah, it was one of those like, and just I won't spoil Doctor Who because a lot of people are. I mean, even right now, a lot of people are probably in the binging mode of getting caught up because it seems like
I was just saying, a lot of people are waiting for Netflix.
Yeah, a lot of people wait for Netflix. It's BBC. A lot of people maybe don't subscribe to the BBC America channel where they don't have access to the new season. So yeah, I won't talk about it specifically. But the setup for the last scene and what we talked about, if you remember. The Doctor doesn't necessarily win in that episode. Yeah. I won't go into specifics, but that was an interesting take because that never happens.
That's the first time that really happened.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with Doctor Who?
No, I thought the finale in it had a cool twist. Like you were talking about how he didn't necessarily win in that. There's something cool that happens in the finale.
Yeah.
And then the Christmas special this year was pretty fucking awesome, I thought. Not as Christmassy as like a lot of the Christmas specials are. But because of what it is about and what happens in it, you don't really give a shit.
And by the end of it, it is heartwarming as fuck, which is really what should always be what they're going for with their Christmas episodes.
Yes. So it was fucking awesome. All right, Jeff.
Oh, we're getting ready?
We're getting ready.
Getting ready. Go ahead. Jeffrey's number 1 in television is Daredevil.
I knew it.
Is fucking Daredevil.
I knew it.
I mean, it should have been apparent because, like, I've just been going gaga over Daredevil. And when did it come out? Like April?
I think so.
Like 8 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just rewatched it before Jessica
You're wearing
Jones.
a Daredevil
Wearing a
shirt.
Daredevil.
You kind of spoiled your number one for me.
Wearing a Daredevil shirt.
See, mine was Ghostbusters.
My number one movie of 2015 is the Fimbusters trailer. The thing about Daredevil, and basically the way I can sum it up as to why it is my favorite TV show, is what we always say over and over and over again, and it is the best Batman TV show we were ever going to get.
Yes.
And
I second that.
You really, really like Daredevil, and you say it's the best Batman TV show we're ever going to get. It's a bonus for me because it's the best Batman show we're ever going to get that's also starring one of my top 5 favorite comic book characters.
I thought he was your favorite Marvel.
Daredevil, we'll just really
Again,
quickly...
I know picking your favorite comic character is like picking your favorite child, but...
I've boiled them down to a rough top 5 in no exact order other than Batman is number 1.
Yeah.
But my 2, 3, 4, and 5 are Spider-Man, Nightwing, Daredevil, and Captain America. Those are like the ones I can never really hammer down.
Figure out, yeah.
But yeah, it was the best Batman TV show I'm ever going to get that also starred one of my other favorite characters. Because Daredevil is one of those other characters, kind of like Nightwing, who is a really, really cool character who has kind of, for the most part, been shit on as far as branching out into other mediums. So with
reasons that are not Nightwing or the comics' fault or even Chris O'Donnell's fault in Batman and Robin necessarily either, because a lot of people shit on him and Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. I think he did the best he could with what he had.
He did a total Hayden Christensen in the Star Wars prequels.
Yeah.
What the fuck else can the guy do?
Yeah.
You're handing him dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, you wanted to make gold out of dog shit? It's not going to happen.
Yeah,
like,
so, because of those movies, though, we'll most likely never see a Dick Grayson Robin again, which means we'll probably most likely never get Nightwing, unfortunately.
maybe at some point
maybe in the Batman.
What should happen, and I'm calling this right now, what should happen, if Hulu wants to compete with Netflix, DC rated R shit.
Yes.
And get the Batman characters going.
Yes.
And then just send that shit out there, and it's like, watch an episode of Gotham, and then watch this. This is DC. That's what they should do.
Unless they bring Nightwing in and Ben Affleck's solo movie, The Batman, since it's supposed to be roughly based on a Death in the Family and Red Hood, which Nightwing's a part of.
Yeah.
If they write him out of that, then they should definitely do a Netflix or Hulu show or something, because, DC won't ever do a Batman TV show because it'll be too confusing for audiences because they'll expect it to tie in with the Batman movies.
And they also don't want to oversaturate what is, right now, their only moneymaker.
Yes.
Like, Man of Steel did very good for a Superman movie, but, like, Batman is their only license to outright print money.
Yes.
So that they can't afford to oversaturate and throw Batman all over the place, even though they'd like to.
Yeah. So, Nightwing would be a great candidate for that.
Yeah.
That could be basically their Arrow, but not suck.
Dude, like, if Hulu announced, like, 4 or 5... Oh, just do
You'd
Dude, what if Hulu did the Teen Titans? They did them all individually and then built them together. That would be. I'm
like Defender style.
I'm
like
geeking
Netflix
out right now
doing?
just thinking about that. Would be incredible. But yeah, with what I really, really liked about Daredevil, and I think we actually brought it up when we talked Jessica Jones, is one of the reasons I like the season of Doctor Who so much was because it was 13 episodes long. 14 if you count the Christmas... No, it was 13 counting the Christmas special with Doctor Who. It all kind of felt like it was... Like, if I told you there was all one writer, for the most part, you kind of buy it.
Right.
Daredevil is written by, like, 6 or 7 or even more different people. But, man, if I told you that was all one writer, you believe me in a heartbeat. Because, like, those dudes were on point about making it all one singular storyline.
And because... What was it? Was it a 13-episode run?
Daredevil, all the Netflixes are 13.
Okay, so... Because of that, there's no fucking around either. And that show was already high-octane, fast-paced as it was.
That's the next thing I will talk about. The action scenes in Daredevil...
Especially one in particular.
are... Like, when's the last time you saw action that good in a movie?
Never, I don't think.
Like, it is... okay.
The choreography in that show is insane. And then what they managed to pull off, like... I don't understand how they get you the shots that they get in the middle of the action. I don't understand how the actors with cameras crammed in their fucking faces are pulling that shit off. And the shots are not only steady, I can see what the fuck is happening.
Yes,
and
exactly.
Half the time, I don't want to because it's so brutal.
Brilliant point. Hollywood, it's gotten a little bit better in the last couple of years, but for about
Batman Begins is the worst example.
For about 10 years, people got boners for quick cut fight scenes where you don't know what's happening, and that frustrates me.
Yeah,
one of the reasons I really dislike the first Hunger Games movies, or the first Hunger Games movie, is because the action, you don't know what's going on half the time.
The thing that I always point out to my wife every time we watch that fucking movie is at the end of the movie, PETA picks up a dude and he's gonna slam him on the ground, and right as he's about halfway through the downward motion, it cuts away. Show me his ass hitting the ground.
Like with Daredevil,
it showed me their limbs hitting the ground more or less. Like it was insane.
Like Daredevil's fight scenes are so good, they're indescribable.
Bones popping out left and right.
And that's the first thing we need.
It's not, while it is crazy ass choreography and crazy ass fight scenes, it's not Into the Badlands crazy shit.
Yes, you buy it.
You buy into it.
One of the probably less pointed out things about what makes her fight scenes so good is people get fucking worn out in the middle of them. Yes. And it makes it human. Like where you alluded to it. The hallway fight scene is the best fight scene I've ever seen in a movie, any TV show, period. Because I get winded watching the goddamn TV show.
I was legitimately concerned for the star of the fucking show in that scene.
And another cool little thing too is before he hits into the fight, he has rope tied around his knuckles, and if you watch by the end of the scene,
there's not much of it left.
It's all falling off. Little touches like that.
What about when he was fighting the ninja-like dude in the rain? You remember that? He can barely get up.
Where they had the iconic scene where he gets up when the blood's all in the puddle from his mouth. Yeah. Just visually stunning. Not even just the fight choreography, the cinematography in general was very good.
And the timing of the fights and the sound effects in the fights make you fucking cringe, man.
And one tagline I can say to it is, they made it rated R Marvel, rated MCU, rated R, which is something that I love all the movies, but they're always kind of fluffy, they're feel good movies. This was rated R, brutal but not gratuitous.
Yes.
And that was one of my biggest complaints about Jessica Jones. It was their rated R way they went about making it rated R, I should say, was cheap to me.
Yeah.
Because how many times we see people fucking that we didn't really need to see fucking happen all the time? With Daredevil's brutality to their fight scenes perfectly services the character, because the biggest thing about his character is what he gets from his dad as far as being a boxer. Murdochs always get back up.
Yes.
That whole thing about when you see bones breaking, him getting worn out, is no matter what, that dude will not give up.
I think Daredevil did for comic book movies and stuff, which, by the way, a lot of what we're talking about here, I feel like is going to be in Batman versus Superman. I feel like Batman's going to be wore the fuck out. Yeah. Probably even Superman is probably going to be wore the fuck out. I feel like we're going to see a lot of that now, because trust me, DC is getting their ass kicked by Marvel. They notice what people like about the Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
They're taking notes. And I cannot wait to see Batman get the fuck beat out of him and still get back up even though he's exhausted and win. I will give it that. But no, I feel like what Daredevil did for comic book movies and TV shows is what the Die Hard franchise did for action movies. And that was, before Die Hard, the action hero was invincible. The
Rambo.
Action hero, yeah, he could do anything, and he did. None of his bullets missed. Everything he did hit his target. Everything he did always worked out. His plans always worked. And then you see Die Hard. You were fucking concerned that Bruce Willis is going to die.
Yes,
even though he's the star in those.
It was the beginning of the everyman hero.
Yeah, and he was covered in his own blood by the end of the movie. And half the time, the shit that he had planned did not work out and had to improvise, and as far as not the first one specifically, but all the movies. And that changed the face of action movies. I feel like Daredevil, we witnessed something that's going to be changing all comic book movies.
What's very interesting, what you're saying, is Do you
TV
remember
shows.
when you yesterday or the day before you saw an IGN like the top 10 fight scenes or whatever?
Yes.
The one from Arrow was in the current season of Arrow, and it was completely doing the Daredevil style of the long edit
Yeah.
in a hallway. They literally it took them like 7 months to copy Daredevil. Like,
Imagine what DC is going to do with Superman and Batman after the Daredevil fight, dude.
I think
Especially the spoilers that are in that trailer and Wonder Woman being there.
My prediction after seeing that trailer, the newest Batman v Superman trailer, it's gonna be dumb as shit, but shit gonna blow up real nice.
And I feel like you may even be legitimately concerned for Superman's life by the end of the movie. Like, But anyways,
the one more thing I will say about Daredevil is we've gone on deservedly so a long time about the action, but I absolutely loved how they were able to do with the Netflix format for this Daredevil TV show what they've never been able to successfully accomplish in the movies outside of Loki, is we actually had an established villain.
Yes.
Entire episodes either solely focused on Kingpin
or mostly.
And D'Onofrio as Kingpin was fucking awesome.
He's not dead.
I am more familiar with the specific characters as far as the side characters than you are. They were all casted beautifully. They're all like Foggy and Karen are both really, really good.
Yeah, they are.
Ben Urich, that actor was super awesome.
Just don't be in a Marvel property and be named Ben.
Right. The characters were all good, and they actually did something with Kingpin they had never done before. Is they added like a little twist into his character, because typically he is cool because of what he does and how he's like the Kingpin crime boss of all of New York, basically. I was about to say Gotham.
Might as well be.
They gave him more character than being kind of like a mustache twirling crime boss. They gave him like character flaws, which I actually thought made him kind of interesting.
And you understood his point of view. You understood why he was doing everything, and you could agree with his reasoning. You just couldn't agree with the way he was going about accomplishing his goals.
Yeah, the character stuff was great.
He was almost more anti-hero than villain. That's been one thing I like. I've been using that a lot lately to describe things, because shows and movies are finally figuring out that people are gray. And, a lot of the criticisms you hear in other podcasts or read about like, say, The Flash, is the definitive line between good and evil in that show, whereas people are gray. They did that beautifully, I think, in Daredevil, because there's even episodes where Daredevil himself is kind of the villain.
All the scenes with him and the priest, he knows what he has to do, doesn't want to do it, and then sometimes can't even figure out if it's the right thing to do.
Yeah,
and it's just like stuff like that. Like it was one of those things where it was kind of like Into the Badlands on steroids, because you were like, oh, I can't wait for the next fight scene, but I'm genuinely enjoying these characters and the narration. And
I think it's also worth pointing out, while we're on the subject of the Netflix Marvel properties, I think both Jessica Jones and Daredevil did a great job, like a fantastic job at one respect, and they both had this in common. The way they depicted everyone's powers.
Yes, totally agree.
Was fantastic.
You never...
Between Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, Kilgrave, Daredevil, any of them, the way they depicted their powers, I really like.
And when you break down, Daredevil's powers are absolutely ridiculous, but it totally works in this really grounded show.
Yeah.
It was like... What I kind of equate Daredevil to is everything you and I love about Batman Begins with good action.
Yeah.
It's just like, imagine if these guys had directed the action for Batman Begins, how much different that film experience could have been.
Oh, yeah.
And like, you and I adore that movie, but that could have made it like a perfect superhero movie.
Yeah. And
it's like all that stuff and more in like season 2, John Bernthal Punisher. Like, we might even not even seen the good shit yet, like in that show. I cannot be more excited for season 2, and I adored season 1. And I cannot. If you haven't watched Daredevil, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
seriously,
it's just sitting there waiting to be binged. It's so good.
I feel like anyone that would be listening to us watched it the weekend it came out. That's why I just held nothing back through our conversation.
For sure. But yeah, that is my number 1 2015.
All right.
And cue up
Walking Dead.
Really? See, that was one that was
noticeably missing from my list.
From mine, yeah. I was not expecting that. Go on. I love this whole concept of doing the top 5 list. It makes me happy.
The middle. I was going to say Rocky, which is not true. Again, Walking Dead does not have bad episodes, just like Game of Thrones. The middle of the season went into cruise control. I would give it that.
I think that's being kind of nice.
But
I think it went into 10 mile per hour cruise control.
I didn't say it was 80 mile an hour cruise control. I just said it went into cruise control. It kind of petered out in the middle.
It was cruise control in a school zone.
But to me, it was still kind of interesting in a Game of Thrones, like political drama kind of way. Interesting.
I can see that.
But that fucking first like 3 or 4 episodes, and then some of the shit that went down near the finale and in the finale was just batshit insane. And I loved every second of it because, and I think the reason why it made my number 1 is not necessarily this season, but last season dragged for me. At least that second half did. For me, I did not enjoy as much as you did.
I liked the Alexandria stuff once they actually got in there, because that what I found interesting about that part of it was the dynamic of these people outwardly appear fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But they're crazy for all the right reasons, and it was like I like the dynamic of the chick who was like the mayor of whatever they called her, like the leader. I've heard judging them versus their people they had, but yeah. Sorry.
Here's the thing. I get that the idea behind Alexandria was none of these people have been exposed to what the world is like now, so it gives you perspective because you've been following Rick and the gang, basically, right? So you were 100% for Rick and the gang, and you don't realize how uncivilized and unhinged they all are until they reach a society of people that have never had to live out there and try to survive the way they do. Basically, Alexandria was us now, and they are the shadow of what Rick and the group used to be. And and they were a civilized group, and I enjoyed that. But the way everything was, and it's kind of slow, I could not fucking wait to get out of Alexandria and move on with the storyline last season. This season, however, I'm totally fucking fine with Alexandria.
See, that is exactly, I think, why I was like excited by the prospect they're even in Alexandria, because I already, being a comic book reader, knew where it was going. You have not read any of the comics, so you had a completely fresh eye.
What?
That your take is completely valid if you had no attachment to Alexandria.
Yeah, which I didn't.
Knowing this type of shit was going to happen, I was like, oh, I can't wait for this shit to happen.
The previous season, like, there were literally times during the season, and it's been so long now I don't even remember necessarily what, but I remember watching it and it's been like, oh,
no. To me, that was the first half of last season with the hospital bullshit.
Yeah,
that was worthless storytelling right there. That served no purpose to anything.
With the hospital bullshit and my feelings towards Alexandria, this season just skyrocketed Walking Dead because you can't help but compare the seasons in your head. Because that's just the way the shows work, basically. When you watch a show, that's just human nature. So I look at this season, and my expectations after last season were low for this season, kind of. And then they gave me those first, 3 or 4 episodes. That was a movie. That was the zombie movie that I want in theaters, dude.
The first 3 episodes of this season of The Walking Dead are the best zombie movie you will ever see.
Yes.
Period.
Yes. So, Even in the downtime, they had me hooked. Even in the downtime, it wasn't edge of your seat political drama like Game of Thrones with like the dialogue and everything. It wasn't written as well as that, but it still had me going because I could see that it was trying to set up for some crazy shit later. Also, and you also cannot just start out like that and keep that going. You have to tone it down.
You see why it was, and this is a quick jump ahead to one of my. I already said it was one of my honorable mentions. That first 3 episode movie being as good as it was what made it an honorable mention for me. Was because for me, those first 3 episodes were so fucking good that it made the whole thing feel uneven to me.
Because, yeah, I can see that.
Because for me, and I talked about it at various points in Doctor Who and The Flash. I love in fiction ramping up to the ending.
Yeah.
Because my whole thing is let's talk about movie X and movie Y for just a second.
Before we get too far off, what you just said was one of the things I loved about it, because that is the typical formula: is you ramp up the entire time to the finale.
That's a good point.
And this one, they turned it upside down.
They played on your expectations, which is totally cool.
That finale is what I more or less would have expected from the premiere.
Okay,
and the premiere is what I would have expected from the finale. So turning that on its head, I really enjoyed. I hadn't had a show do that to me.
That's a good point. I appreciate them playing on your expectations. It's clever writing.
Yeah.
My thing about it on why it got lowered so far down my list. I still really liked it because we talk about it nonstop at Walking Dead. Like that's one of the first things we talk about Monday morning, Sunday night when we watch it is Walking Dead. I love it. I've read every fucking issue of the comic. I love The Walking Dead. Period. But let's talk about for a second just conceptually in movies or TV. Let's talk about movie X and movie Y.
Okay.
Movie X is fucking awesome the first 15 minutes and never lives up to it again. Movie Y ramps up to a totally badass last 35-minute climax. To me, I walk out of the second movie with the better ending, feeling better about it than thinking, oh man, if only ever could have gotten and lived up to that beginning. That's just how I in general see fiction, I guess.
Okay, and the way that I would watch both of those movies, movie X and Y, is probably the first week or couple of weeks after I saw them, oh man, both of those movies are just amazing, but the more I think about them, then the lower they would fall on my list. Because Walking Dead, I prefer more of a roller coaster, and that's kind of what happened in Walking Dead. I don't like big start or just big finish, because I'm either really excited and this is going to be the best thing ever, and then really bored the rest of the way through, or I'm bored leading up to the big finish. That's just the way I am when I watch movies.
I think my thing with that season of The Walking Dead
That's why I liked this season of Doctor Who so much, was it was a roller coaster.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think probably back with Walking Dead this season is, like we said multiple times, the first 3 episodes were utter genius. I didn't have as much of a problem with the episode everyone seems to pick on, which was the one, what's Bo Staff guy's name? I'm blanking on his name. Morgan?
Oh, yes.
I actually really like that episode.
People only hate that episode for its placement and its length. I thought it was been an hour and a half.
It should not. That's true. It shouldn't have been that long, but I thought it was a good episode.
It was a really good episode, but people just hate it because of its placement. And I don't want to spoil where it is.
They wanted everything crazy to continue, and I actually thought it was a really good episode. My problem. Okay, so we're talking now at that point, kind of middle of the season.
By the way, can we just take a second to appreciate the size of the balls on the person at AMC that decided to put the episode where they did?
You know who wrote the episode, right?
Who was
the showrunner?
Was it?
Yeah.
So if it's anything like Doctor Who, when you see the showrunner's name at the beginning of the episode, you expect some crazy shit. But yeah, I just
again, they played on your expectations.
I'll tell you off mic what it is if you don't know what I'm talking about. As again, I don't want to spoil for people who are getting caught up on it or are waiting for it to hit Netflix or whatever, or buying the seasons or whatever. But there was something else about that episode that was pretty goddamn ballsy as well. If you don't know what it is, remind me. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But
yeah. And again, it never got bad. It was just, goddamn, those first 3 episodes were so good that how you were saying their mid-season finale felt like the premiere. Mm-hmm. Usually, I find Walking Dead's premiere is kind of lackluster, and I wasn't as invested in their mid-season finale as I usually am.
And that's what I was talking about by flipping the formula. That mid-season finale is more what I would have expected from the premiere, especially on Walking Dead.
Which was, I think, the way that you liked how they flipped it around. My first impression, I think I might even talk to you about it, was like, dude, if they're doing this now, it's going to get even fucking crazier later, and it never did. And that was it will as soon as we come back from the break.
I was going to say.
That's when the shit goes down, because I can tell you, shit goes down.
We're only halfway through the season right now.
That's fair, but the way that Walking Dead works nowadays is that's basically considered 2 seasons. When you think about it, it has such a long break, and it's always, on their own account, made out to be such a big deal.
Yeah.
They basically run 2 different seasons at that point. So, yeah.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I understand and appreciate your criticism of it. And
I appreciate why you like it, because it is incredibly clever writing, and I fucking love.
Because I can see it both ways. I could see how someone from your perspective would feel that way, but basically, it didn't have a whole lot to do with the show as to why it's my number one, but just the way that they wrote it and the way they planned it. Like, it fucking blew me away the way that they did it. Of all the shows I've ever seen, I've never seen a show flip the formula upside down
do it that well,
and do it well like
that. It was fucking.
I feel like that was kind of a risky maneuver for them, because it would turn off people that.
And so was the Morgan episode. They like the whole season. They were. They had a character. Is he dead? Is he not dead? They never done that before.
And also keep in mind, I'm still rearranging my fucking list as we're talking about them.
Yeah.
And everything was just a hair away, except for Into the Badlands. I had to put Into the Badlands in my top 5 because I appreciate everything they've done with that show, and I did not expect any of that they did do. I just expected the cool fights.
So, okay, looking back on your list, which all were the ones that were the closest tie? Like, any of these could have been number 1.
It'd probably be the current top 3 that I had: Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, and Doctor Who.
So those are the ones that you kept going back and forth on?
Yeah. But Game of Thrones, again, was muddled for me because
it's a hard one to judge.
It's a hard one to judge, and you have such an appreciation for all of the other seasons, it's hard to judge the season on its own. You know?
Very, very true.
So,
yeah, my closest ones...
There's not a definitive line between the seasons on Game of Thrones like there is everything else.
Mine are pretty... like I was telling you before, and we'll talk about my other honorable mention in a second, I felt pretty good about what my top 4 were. My 2 that didn't make it and my number 5 were all so fucking close. Like,
yeah.
Coin flip. Do you want to talk about honorable mentions now?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do honorable mentions. Since you were doing everything first, do yours.
The one I already said was Walking Dead.
Yep.
That one was actually originally we talked about doing this a couple months ago, so I started kind of like I had the note app going, kind of like formulating it as I was going along.
Right.
It was in my top 5 for the longest time.
I think that's one reason why ours are so different also, because I did mine as a looking back thing.
I did mine along the way.
And you did yours along the way.
Yeah.
I think that's another reason why ours... But, I mean, I love that it... Again, I figured our lists would be mostly similar, and they were.
Did we so I had Daredevil, you had Into the Badlands. Was everything else... Oh, and I had Saul. So which ones did we have that were the same? We both had Game of Thrones, Doctor Who, and The Flash. So 3 of the 5 were the same.
Unless you count honorable mentions.
Honorable mentions, my first one was Walking Dead. It was fucking in my top 5 for the longest time. It was after the finale. After the mid-season finale of Walking Dead, and I did what you do and go back and type in 2015 TV shows.
Yeah.
Saw Better Call Saul.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things we're looking back on.
Is that the one that you texted me and you're like, oh god, I just thought of one I forgot about?
Like, and it was so early on in the year.
Yeah.
It's in the back of your brain.
It feels like last year. Really.
But man, dude, I fucking love me some Better Call Saul. So Walking Dead was my first honorable mention. My other one was Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. got damn close to making the top 5. It was always just a hair below because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I just appreciate how they never have a bad episode anymore. When it used to be all bad episodes.
We used to do nothing but bitch about that show, dude. and boy, did they shut us the fuck up.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did some really...
Apparently, their showrunner listens to our podcast because they tell
and more people should.
Yes.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. did some really, really interesting stuff. I'm not going to spoil anything from that because that's another show a lot of people haven't started yet because it started off so rocky. People haven't gotten back into the binging mode on it yet. Thought they did really, really interesting stuff. I thought it had maybe the best mid-season finale they've had. And they've had some good ones, but holy fuck, shit goes down in that one. So, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. wasn't originally on my radar, but that mid-season finale being so good, it got it up in the honorable mentions.
Yeah.
So let's go over to yours.
You're going to be disappointed.
Daredevil?
Not in it.
Even in the honorable mentions?
If we did 3 honorable mentions, it would be right there.
Okay.
Because here's the thing. I don't know if you rank your honorable mentions. Mine are in no particular order.
My furthest away, I think, was Walking Dead.
And everything that we have talked about was all, again, like a hairline apart from each other for me. I had a much easier time with my movies, I think, than I did my TV shows.
I had a harder time with the movies than I did the TV shows.
Did you? But I had Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Better Call Saul.
Okay.
In my honorable mentions. And if we did one more, Daredevil would have been in it.
So, man, we had a lot of... So, okay.
I almost had Daredevil in there and not Better Call Saul. But, honestly, if you watched Breaking Bad and lived in the days where they had just announced Better Call Saul, you kind of thought to yourself, what the fuck are they going to do with that? You know, like, you could kind of see it, but at the same time you couldn't. And that's why I made it into the top 2 I was going to mention. Because Daredevil we knew was going to be good either way.
That's true too.
And then Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. you've already gone over very well.
So which ones did we end up out of the we each had 7. I had Daredevil, and you had Into the Badlands. Was there anything else that
I think everything else is the same.
Was the same, just in various. Yeah, it's pretty damn close. It was very interesting. We were like the same until the number 1. Like
it was tempting to put South Park in there, dude.
I'm in the process of getting caught up because another one. If we were talking other ones, they got really damn close into the honorable mentions.
Yeah,
Rick and Morty, which I've been trying to get you to watch forever. Rick and Morty's fucking awesome, dude.
Is it?
I love it to death.
Hey, is there one that you wanted to throw out that you've been watching that while it didn't make it in your honorable mention thing, you think is underappreciated and someone should watch? Because I have one.
Go. You talk yours. I'm going to
go through your list.
I'm going to look
your
around.
Santa Claus long list.
I'm going to look around.
12 Monkeys.
I never watched it, actually.
It's pretty good. It's Sci-Fi Channel, and it's nothing like the Bruce Willis movie. But,
okay.
You know, nothing against the Bruce Willis movie. That's kind of its strength at the same time. But I really like the way that they do the time travel stuff and the way that the story is laid out. And I think it's done very well. And you heard a lot about it before it premiered. Then after it premiered, you stopped hearing about it. But it's getting another season, so someone's watching it.
Mine's not really underappreciated, but one of those, how you were talking about basing your argument on the longevity of the show versus the current season of the show, Justified. Justified as a whole is one of my all-time favorite TV shows. I absolutely adore that show. Another one I've been trying to get you to fucking watch that you won't do it.
I want to. I'm not that into Westerns. If only you can see the look he gave me.
You son of a bitch. It's a long time running joke. I have had to tell Ron like 5 times that no, just because he has a cowboy hat doesn't mean it's a fucking Western, Ron. Yeah, that would be my closest one. After that, Jessica Jones. If we were making a top 10 list, Jessica Jones would have been close to my top 10, I think. I really did like a lot of Jessica Jones. It was just what I had complaints on. Really, it was like one of those, on one hand, I love...
A lot of their missteps were a lot more egregious to you than they were to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, the last thing I'll say about 12 Monkeys, you know how I feel about time travel stuff. Most of the time it pisses me off, but 12 Monkeys is all...
But you love Doctor Who so much.
But the way that they do it, though, it has to be done well. It has to be well written. Well, most of the time there's time travel involved. It's not well thought out. It's not well planned.
It's a gimmick.
And it's a gimmick. And in Doctor Who and in 12 Monkeys, it is anything but. Dude, the guy takes a fucking wristwatch and touches it to a wristwatch in the past to escape.
That's fucking cool.
Because it creates a paradox.
How many episodes was that? I want to watch this. Like, I've been wanting to watch it for a while. Do I need to watch the movie first as well? That's another question. Okay. So I can just watch the show. Yeah,
and you can know nothing about the novel or
was the
short
movie
story
good?
Or whatever it was. The movie I thought was good. Of course, I'm much older now. My opinions on movies and the way I rank them is a lot different.
That was one of the first Brad Pitt big roles.
So let me look up 12 Monkeys because the season ended a while ago. I think it's like 12 or 13.
And you want to know what I think also while you're looking
again
it up?
Helps it.
I think what made our lists harder was I think doing top 5 is harder than doing top 10.
Yes.
Because you get to that point like we were talking about.
You can cop out in a top 10.
You can cop out in a top 10 because... 13.
And there's 13 in the second season.
Sci-fi?
Sci-fi. Sci-fi original series.
I'm going to throw out a shout out to Expanse. Expanse has been very good. I like it.
See, and I didn't get around to watching Expanse or Childhood's End, which really doesn't count, but it was on TV this year.
Yeah.
because even if I had rushed through and got caught up on them, I don't think there'd be enough of the shows around for me to compare them to other ones that I watched.
It's impossible.
So
but as far as if we were talking like if we were doing like new shows, it was one of the better new shows.
Yeah.
That and Into the Badlands, like yeah, I think we ended up agreeing a lot more. It was weird. Like we were like pretty neck and neck until like my number one isn't even on your list, and your number one barely made my honorable mentions. So it's interesting. That's why I love making these type of things because
no one killed each other.
Yeah, that comes next. So yeah, I think this is actually gonna be a wrap up to. I think we're gonna split this up in two podcasts. We're gonna do this one as the TV portion.
I think simultaneous release though. Which, one of the best pornos I've ever seen, by the way.
I mean, like, no one's gonna fucking watch anyway. This is mostly for us anyway.
Right.
But yeah, that's one of my favorite things about doing these top 5 lists and not being one of those bitchy internet commenters and just like, oh, you're just fucking stupid. Like, how could you possibly like this better than this? Like, it's totally subjective, and that is the point of a top 5 list.
Yes.
Which, like everything else, the internet has no concept of what it actually exists for. But yeah, before I get on a tangent of bitching about the internet, which we do every episode now, it seems like. This is
we spend so much of our time on there, it just pisses us off.
This is gonna be a wrap to our top 2015 TV shows. What a fucking good year for TV!
Oh god!
Like we've talked about multiple times. TV as a whole makes movies look like dog shit.
It's the golden age of television.
Golden age of television, and I think that is as good of a point as any to wrap up our top 5 lists on TV. If you would like to check us out more, we are on the social medias. We are on Twitter at TWBE Podcast, Facebook.com/TWBE Podcast. We post some occasional news, but not to the point of being annoying like a lot of the other tweeters do.
A lot of big breaking, but we don't just do news for the sake of news.
Yeah, exactly. And let's see, I'm trying to think if I'm missing anything else. If you found us, like and subscribe on the YouTubes.
I was gonna say, I bet it feels weird not plugging the iTunes.
I had such a groove going where it's This
is our first episode to not be on iTunes because as of January 1, we will no longer be available on iTunes. I guess you'd call it viewership as opposed to listenership on YouTube has been tremendous, and I think our iTunes was climbing until summer, and then after summer it started to climb, and then we started the YouTube stuff, and I think that took away from our iTunes.
We're kind of hurting ourselves, basically.
So there's no point in shelling out the money, especially when we don't get donations or ask for money or anything to keep it going. Might as well do the free thing if people are going to pay more attention there.
Might as well. And again, it was so awkward. Did I miss anything that we're actually still doing?
No.
Okay. That works for me. It's a shorter bullshit plug. So yeah, thank you guys for listening. I am Geoff.
I am Ron.
And we will catch you on the top 2015 movies list next.